Howdy folks, happy Thursday, hope you're doing alright. Alrighty here, and hopefully you're staying warm and out of the snow here. So I did get the notice they canceled in-person classes, but we're not in person unfortunately. We are a remote class, so we don't get canceled. That's, you know, I guess the bummer part of that, but really when they cancel class you just have to make it up later anyway, so it's not great to get canceled, so I think this worked out nice. So we have a couple things today. Project 2 was due, so hopefully folks got a chance to get that one in. I know a couple people are having some last minute issues, so if it's not perfect, you know, don't sweat it too much. It's just, you know, there's definitely partial points, so don't be too concerned there. Oh, it's some sort of hail by you, Marv? Oh man, no, it's still real fluffy snow here. I'm in Wixom, just north of Novi, so not too far away from campus. Oh no, it hurts. And don't go outside then. Ouch. That's no good. Yeah, like serious hail would be a big bummer for sure. I'd be sad about some serious hail, but I think it's not too bad. Its cars are definitely going slow, so got to get my driveway cleared out, and then we'll see whether or not there's gonna be a snow day for kids tomorrow, because it's not supposed to go all night for snow, right? It's supposed to stop at some point coming up soon. So maybe we get a chance to get it all plowed out. I don't know. The kids are all hoping for snow days. All right, so we're going to talk about Project 2, and then we'll talk about the last main chunk of PHP, arrays, functions, and objects. And we do a little bit here, not a lot, back on 3.10 when we come back in March. So this is essentially the core of the PHP portion of the course. And then when we come back, we'll wrap up those last couple topics, talk about how secure things work, talk about basic authentication. This one will be important because we need to do authentication for the final project, whether or not it's in PHP or JSP. Yes, I'm sorry, they're numbered wrong here. Let me fix that. Let me go fix that because I am a goof. Thanks, Emily. Yes, apologize for that. Didn't mean to throw any panic there. So let me go update that one here. Give me just a second. I gotta go find where that syllabus is, and I will fix that because I think I've done that like 3 weeks in a row now. I'm sorry. Let me see. Okay. Here, we'll go find that syllabus for winter 2454, and then we'll go change it here in a second. Yeah, I forgot I numbered them properly in D2L and improperly in the syllabus here. Because as you all know, when we count in programming languages, we always start with 0, thanks to arrays, which we're going to talk about tonight. Arrays, hooray. Arrays, hooray. Does that rhyme? Maybe it does. So I'm starting to feel a little better. I got a cold over the weekend. Actually, on Sunday, it was awful. Monday, I couldn't do classes. I was taking some cold medicine and it made me super loopy. It was crazy. And I've been feeling pretty down since. I'm just starting to come back to feeling a little normal here. 2 and 3. Okay, there we go. 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's better. And then we can upload this to D2L here. Just give it a quick little update. There we go. Okay, so it should load in a minute. No, I appreciate that. So let's take a look at the assignment here, and I'll pull up. Oh, I should have started NetBeans again. So it's going to take its forever time. We'll finish out the project, adding the rest of the CRUD operations, right? All of our create, read, update, and delete here. And I'm sorry, I've not gotten your project created. My goodness, the being sick thing has been miserable. So I have like no energy. Today now I'm going down my stairs without being winded, that's a real weird feeling. So not even like a whole lot of description here. We're going to take our project, finish adding CRUD for customers, transactions, and line items, and either keep an index page or make new pages for each one of them. I'd like this new pages for each one, and then each page is its own controller, essentially, and I think that'll work out pretty nice here. And then points, right, for this was customer, read, update, delete, options, transaction. We already had create, right, so this was just 3 points there, and for line item, we already had create, so just 3 points for those ones here. So 1 per operation here for the 10 points. And definitely partial points, right? If you got some of them and not others, if you got half of it working, great. You know, give yourself half a point here. And hopefully you did that when you did your self-assessment. You scored yourself and said, this is how I did. And then we also talk about the midterm as well. Right? Did we do midterm? I don't think we did midterm prep last week, so we'll talk about the midterm also. Yep, Beans is still thinking real hard here. We'll just we'll let it chill for a minute, and they can think about it. I'll drink some more coffee. How's your folks' classes going? Because I know a lot of you take more than just this class, so. We're have new stuff in the works, but generally by the time you're here, you're pretty close to done with your programs. I think it's not usually one of the earlier classes people take in the program, so we'll see how well it goes. Come on, Netbeans. If you haven't seen this, I showed this to my other classes. Stack Overflow. It's super cool. This is all sorts of insights about developers who use Stack Overflow. So it is not a complete picture of everyone who's a developer, but it's a pretty good look into what's being used, what's popular, what people like. People like this. I wasn't a fan of the technology, but PHP is lower on the list, unfortunately. But this, again, is a global organization. Overflow. This is not just the United States. So this was 56,000 people around the world who responded to the survey here. So just take that with a grain of salt. I mean, it's not always the most important one here, but where are we looking here for languages? Is that a good what web frameworks people use? Into more front-end development. Most of this stuff is JavaScript sort of things. Some of the ASP.NET stuff. Spring is a very common framework here as well. You can do a lot of good stuff with Spring. And those are platforms. There's something about languages here that I just wanted to look at. Programming languages, and what do we have here? I think we have PHP as a language here. That's pretty common, pretty commonly used. There was still waiting on this to load here, so we can keep looking at these. What editors people like, which is kind of fun. So NetBeans is loved by 22% of respondents and dreaded by 77%, unfortunately. So that's kind of unfortunate. But there are some other tools we can use to do this. Excuse me. VS Code looks like it's pretty good for a lot of this stuff, and it's gotten some really good ratings here. Again, it kind of depends what people are doing with it. Marv, you're taking biology. Yeah, biology is an interesting course. All sorts of cool stuff. Humans are like some really complicated, essentially. In terms of Git, 90% of all respondents use Git of the developers who use Stack Overflow. So that's, again, a widely used tool here. Frameworks and libraries, just languages. Platforms, databases. Yeah, programming languages. So this is languages that people love to use. So 40% of people love using PHP, 60% essentially dreaded using PHP, but it depends on what you're using too. Here we go. So this is IDE, other tools. One of these was languages here. Web frameworks, cloud platforms. Here, this was the languages one. So which languages people are using? So there's all respondents and just professional developers. Yeah, the VS Code has some really cool extensions here. So we're not far down on the list, actually. It's still very widely, about 20% of people then is a commonly used programming language. And among professional developers, still 22%. So still a widely used language here, for sure. Java, beats it out here, but again, it depends on what you're developing, web applications versus other applications. So NetBeans is still loading. My goodness, it's gonna be one of those days, isn't it? But this is really cool. So I posted the link here in the Discord. You can take a look at all their different different surveys and things that people look at. It's pretty cool. That's still got to load. It's actually loaded. It's like Windows. When it starts, it's just pretending that it's actually started. Oh, some fun information in here. Yeah, I've heard mixed things about Copilot. Maybe it'll be cooler than what I think. So some of the things it's really good at, for sure. All the boilerplate stuff. But generally, that sort of stuff your IDE can do for you already. Maybe not. So we'll see. It had some interesting uses for sure, though. So I think that'll be kind of fun. I'm kind of accelerating the pace of development, making the boring stuff easier to do. All right, can we open our recent projects here? Nope, I don't even have it in the recent list. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mute there. The cough is still lingering a little bit here, but getting close. 2454 for winter for project V2. I was going to go keep working on V2, if that's all right, with our model view controller design. That's going to be a little more nicely organized. Again, it wasn't required for the project at all. You could have kept going with the original model, but that's, whichever you wanted would be fine. So we've got models, we've got views, we've got these are the old pages. Oh, we never even got rid of those old pages. We can get rid of those old. Oh, because we didn't convert them. I'm sorry, that's what they were. So line item and transaction, the ads, we hadn't converted yet to the style. We have the item model itself here with our database. So which one do you want to do next? Do you want to do customers next? Do you want to do, oh my goodness, transactions next? Or do you want to do line items? So line items is probably better for later because we need transactions first. So either customers or transactions. Either one of those we can focus on first. Man, someone's got some loud engine. Customer. All right, let's do customer first. So let's add a new model here then. Let's add a new PHP file, or this is our customer model. And we're going to do a lot of copy paste from item model. And then, I should probably start up XAMPP too, right? And start up our web server and the SQL server. All right, XAMPP, there we go. Start up Apache, start up MySQL. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep missing mute. I need like a button for mute. That'd be nice. Oh, it's been a day already, friends. All right, so with our item model, right, we had the idea of we could get items, we could add item, we could delete item, and we could update item. So we want the same sort of idea here for our customer model. We want to go with customers. This will be get customers. Now we don't need this filtering here. It wasn't required at all, so don't worry about it. It's okay. If you wanted to do the filtering, great. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine. We don't need it here. So we can take out all that other stuff we had there, and this will be select star from customer. And generally, when we name things, let me open up my admin page here. The table names should mostly be singular because each row in that table represents an instance of it. Right, so a customer table will have customer records. Generally, we aim for the singular. It's not too big of a deal one way or the other. If you didn't have it singular, I think we did ours as singular, like we had item instead of items. Right, so this one is easier. So this will be $customers. Right, so customers is the plural. It's all of the customers we fetch. Then we return customers. So the get is pretty easy. Switch it over. Just changing up our query here. Select star from customer. And again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel on any of these. If our PHP MyAdmin ever loads, we can generate all that SQL from here. Maybe it'll load. And if you're having any issues with the SQL side of things, I'm definitely happy to hop on and help you out with that. Because again, we didn't have database, of course, as a prereq. which is it's a good thing and a bad thing. I don't think you necessarily need everything from 1200 to be successful here, but like some of it would have been nice. But you know, that's okay. So we check out our store database. Store database. Maybe we check out the database, the store database. And just go to that page. You'll notice even like it puts this as a GET request here. It's telling you what the database is, what the server is, what the route is. Like, so this is written in PHP to manage this. Yeah, so we have customer, we have item, we have line item, we have transactions. We have the singulars here. But we want to know what fields do we have in the customer table. So I'm going to check out this customer table. Let's see what we get here. Come on. Oh, refused it. That doesn't look good. I think it's just... Oh, it crashed. MySQL crashed. Oh, goodness. Well, that's a bad sign, friends. That is a bad sign there. Try this one more time. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because... Nope. My SQL Server has gone away. Okay. That happened. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it says check the Windows event log for more clues, or check the error logs. Oh goodness. Press the log button. MySQL error log. What is going on here, friends? This is going to make for a rough night then if we don't have this. So this is way back then. Let's go all the way down to the bottom then. End. Oh, control end. Come on, I want end. No, okay, whatever, I'll scroll. All right, so this looks like today, okay? Let's see what this all says here now. Well, here we go. Something breaking here. Port. Use the following information to see where it died. Oh, we're out of memory. Oh, goodness. Okay. My poor computer here ran out of memory to run my SQL Server. That is insane here, friends. Goat, oh no, the internet, is it like power issues with this, all the weather here, or? I should have memory. Like, I'm not using all of it, right? I'm using a decent amount of it, but not all of it. This desktop Windows Manager app is the dumbest one. I hate this one. I don't know what this even does. It upsets me. But we've got memory, so we should be able to do it here. Let's try one more time. I'm going to cross my fingers. Shouldn't have to load that many things here to look up my table. Right, we're not pulling that much into memory. Okay, there it goes. Phew! And we didn't crash this time. So we have ID and name. That's all we had for customer. It's pretty boring. Okay, so that's fine. So we've got our updates here. So to add, we don't even need an ID, right? Because remember, ID is going to be automatically generated here. So all we need is a name. And we'll say insert into customer. And we'll say, I want to give you the name field. That's it. Values of name. That's it. Okay. You mind if I take these comments out that we copy pasted? Okay. And then we'll just bind name here on our query. And we'll update the query. Right? Insert into customer, values name. We could probably even do this all in one line too. That's not even super long. You don't have to do the concatenation. Okay, so delete item then. This is delete customer. We can delete by ID. Customer. Delete from customer, where ID is the ID. And we'll go bind ID to ID. So it's a lot of copy pasting. It's not too bad here. There's actually some stuff that can automate this sort of thing, which is really cool. There's some like frameworks and things that do a lot of the automation, but we want to, take some time here to do this by hand and kind of understand what's happening behind the scenes. I know it seems a little bit obnoxious, but I promise it's worth it. So customer, set name equal name, where ID equals ID. Then we bind name, and we bind the ID. So let me just go copy this bind here. There we go. Give it a little format. And then we have update customer. Okay. So we have update customer, we have delete customer, we have get customer. Let's add item should be add customer. We got to rename that one. Add customer. Spelling is hard, friends. Spelling is hard. Okay. Again, we're taking out a lot of the comments here, just to save a little time and space. And there's our customer model. Not too bad, right? We can select star from customer, get all the customers. We can insert into customer some values. Cool. We can delete from customer where the ID is the ID. And we can update customer, set the name where the ID is. We can update their name here. Okay, so that's all we have in the model here. So similar to the item model, right? Just has a couple functions here. We'll do that in the customer model. So now we're going to need a customer controller. Remember, the controller's job is to get the request and find out what it's supposed to do, go ask the model to do the things, and then send the results to the view to be displayed as pretty HTML. Right, trying to do this model view controller design. So let's go add a new file. I'm going to add it right to the root here, a new PHP file. We'll call this the customer file. Now, customer is going to be very similar to our index currently, which is really, this was the item controller, right? So maybe we'll come back and rename this later, and we can have a better index page, but that's for another time, right? Let me take out. So we'll go in here, and pretty much we're going to do the same thing everywhere. We'll go to the customer controller here now. We'll say, okay, great. So we need the database model, and then we need the customer model. If there is no action, we'll say this is list customers is our action. So if the action is list customers, we don't need to do the name thing, right? We're not doing any of that. And then we'll go get the customers from the get customers method, get customers function we wrote, and that doesn't have any parameters. We didn't do any of that name filtering stuff. And then we'll include a customer list view. We'll have to go write that view in a little bit here. And then if our action here was add or update, right, again, we'll copy off of this because we already have it here. There's an add or update customer. Let's get name and ID. So let's change one of these to ID and get the ID value. We don't need quantity and price. We'll get the add or update from the radio button here, and then we'll check, hey, if ID is 0, right? Because remember, you're not getting null, but for strings, you'll get nulls. So if the ID was 0, missing or invalid ID or name. Include the view, and then if it was add customer, we're going to call add customer, given the name. If it was update customer, we're going to call update customer, given the ID and the name. Okay, and then we'll send them back. So now we don't want to header back to the base page here. We want to header back to, this is, I think, customer.php, I think is what we want. Maybe /. We'll look and see. I'm not entirely sure which one this is going to do for us. We'll see. The location bit is a little bit funky sometimes. Okay, if it was delete customer, we need to get their name, or I'm sorry, their ID. $ID. If the ID, again, it could be 0 here. ID is 0. Because we want to validate, oh, that's right, we should validate that with a, oh, I got rid of those other filter validates. Okay, let's go back to index here. Filter validate int here. We should validate on any of those IDs here. Sorry, Amir, you want why do for add customer and for update customer? In this one here, when we're looking at, this is the add or update, it was the action we were going to pass. And then we had just a radio button that was going to say, hey, was this an add action or was it an update action? You know, this doesn't actually even work very well either because we're not passing ID on add, but you had to pass SKU for add and update. So I think this actually does need a little bit of work. So let's just do add customer here. So add customer doesn't have an ID. We'll call this one update customer because I already have that. So this is update customer, has a name and ID. and then we'll pass the name and ID here, and then we'll just call update customer. And if that worked, then we'll header them here. If it didn't work, we'll catch that exception. Try, oh, too many curly braces there. We'll catch that exception. Okay, so that was update. So we'll do another action here for add customer. Oops, down here. We'll have add customer, and then add customer was just going to have a name. So your invalid name. Otherwise, this would be add customer. Yeah, because you don't have to pass an ID when you're updating here. And then another curly brace. Let's see. Yep, and then if it's update customer, we'll do the update. Is this, are we still in here? Yeah, I think we're still good here. So this is our first if for list, else if for add, else if for update, else if for delete customer. Get the ID, call delete customer. Given the ID, oh, we had to do the filter validate. That's what we're missing here. Filter validate. Anytime we're getting that ID out, we want to make sure we're validating here. And we'll go delete. Okay, so I think that's it for the controller then. We have our 4 actions, right? You can default will list. Great. We can add, calling our add customer. You can update, calling our update customer. And you can delete, calling our delete customer. So we're mapping, hey, what do you want to have happen, to asking the model to do something and then giving you views. So let's see, the headers need to get changed in all of these, right? Because we want to header back to the correct location. I think it was customer.php. Again, we can change that if it's wrong. Customer.php. I think that'll take us to the right location. We'll see. Okay, so then we need some views, right? We need a list. Where's that view we had? List, customer list.php. So let's go add a new view. Let's do a new web page here. This is customer list. So it's going to be very similar to the list here. We'll grab all these things here. And we'll go pop this in here. So this is our customer list. Here we go, customer list. So we're going to include our header. Right. We'll say this is customers. And then, again, we don't need this name thing here, so we can get rid of that block. And then we just have ID and name for our table. Then we can say for each, and then this is going to be $customers as singular $customer. We can go get the ID value and the name value. Add those as table data. Great. And the for each. Now these forms they need to send to customer.php. So there was no search actually. I'm sorry. So that one we can get rid of. We don't need a search here. So then the action here will send us to customer.php. We're going to post the ID. Right? We need an ID. Name is ID. We need a name, and we don't need any of the other ones here. And we don't need a, so the hidden action here, this will be for update customer. Update customer. We don't need the radio options, and then we'll submit here. So then we need like a label here. Yeah, let's do a label. ID to update maybe, and name to update. And then we'll add another form in here. We'll just copy this one. We can send, again, the name here, and this is going to be name to add here, and this will be add customer, is our action. And we'll send that via post to the customer PHP controller. Okay, and then we'll have an update. So we have add, we have update, and then we need a customer to delete. Now we don't have a cool selector yet. So we can do that, right? This is a delete customer. This will be a customer ID select here, a little view, and then we don't need to worry about the transactions or the line items, right? We can get rid of those, and then we'll have our footer. So we're going to need one more view for a customer ID select. So let's add a new view. customer ID select. And we'll take our items queue select and basically copy this here into our customer ID select. And all this one is going to have, then we're going to say for $customers as customer. Again, right, get one customer out at a time. We want to echo the customer ID as the value, and then the customer name as the what's being presented inside the select dropdown. And this is going to be the ID for the select value. So you can pick an ID out of the list given the customer ID or the customer name. Hi, Ian. My cat wants to say hi. This is my old cat. He is like 15 or so. You want to say hi to everybody? Say hi. He likes to hang out in my office now. Ian, say hi. I'm an old man cat. So he's sweet. He was the first cat. He and his brother were the first cats I got after I got my own place. So very excited. My older brother was allergic to cats. So we could never have them at home. But my grandmother had cats, and I always loved her cats, and I always wanted to have my own cats. But we weren't allowed to have them because of my brother. So he's going to eat my data. Yeah, maybe. That's okay. We don't mind. All right, so I think that's all we need here then. So let's give this a shot. See if this will run for us. Oh, but we need a way to get to the customer page. So probably what we can go do is take a look at our header page here. And let's add some navigation in here. Right? So maybe we add a, I think it's a nav component. Is that what it is? That sounds familiar. And then we'll have some links here. So we'll do like a link to, this will be customer.php. This will be customers as the anchor. And then we probably want to get back to, right, our index page here, which is really managing items. So this is index.php for items, customers, and then we need something to separate these things here. So a lot of times people use this non-breaking space or something like that. Is it NBSP, I want to say? Sounds familiar. I think that's what it is. Non-breaking space, semicolon. Yeah, I think that'll do it for us. We'll kind of separate those out a little bit in this little nav bar. Let's give that a shot. There we go. So now I have items, I have customers. So items, again, is the index page. Not very interesting, but customers should take me to the customer PHP page. Uh-oh, we're getting errors here. Undefined variable item in customer list. All right, let's go take a look at our customer list. I renamed the loop, but I didn't rename the selects here, did I? So I have customer and I have item there. So I need to rename those item to customer. Okay, give it a save and refresh. There we go. Now we have customers. So we have the name to add. We get an ID to update, name to update. We get submits here. Oh, we could rename those buttons too. That's probably better. So let's go back and rename those buttons. This will be update customer, and this will be add customer. Okay, give that a refresh. Okay, now our buttons look a little nicer. There we go, add customer, update customer. Let's go add a customer. Let's add Ian. Ian, you want to go buy some stuff, right? So add him, and now we get Ian in the list, and we got headered back to customer. Perfect. It headed us back where we wanted to go. So let's go update here. Let's update 3. Let's say, hey, let's update his name here to Ian the cat. We'll go update him and see if it updates and headers us. Yep, and it headers us back. Great. Who do we want to delete? Well, we can go delete Ian because he's probably not actually going to go buy anything here. Oh, the delete didn't do it. Oh, the delete took us back to index. Oops. So something's wrong with our delete operation here. So let's take a look at our customer controller and see when we did a delete. We did add, we did update, delete, then should take us to, did I misspell something here? Customer, no, that looks right. Okay, so there must have been an error there with delete customer then. What do you think? We should have caught an exception though and included the view. It took me back to index. Okay, so let's go back. So back to customer, I'm going to put on the dev tools here with F12. Let's try delete again. So we didn't successfully delete. Let's try delete and see what happens. So it just sends us to index. Oh, so is the form wrong? The form is wrong. That's what it is. So our customer list view on our delete here needs to not take us to index.php. It needs to take us to customer.php. And because we didn't have a delete customer, it just had no idea what action we were trying to do here, which is weird. So maybe our index page needs a better something here, but this should be okay. We can fix that up later. Okay, so now we'll try that again. Go back to delete, refresh the page, see if we can delete Ian the cat. And oh, it reloaded customer here. It did come back to customer. Got the response. No, that was the first, oh, the second one here. Action was delete. Called delete, did it not header us? All right, something's not working right. What is it here? Delete customer. Delete customer, given an ID. Invalid ID should be our error here. That's fine. Otherwise, we'll try, and then we'll catch, set an exception, include the error view. Do we not include an error view? We're on the customer page. I don't see any error here. I wonder if something was wrong with the error view. No, we should have gotten a link to go back home. Echo the message. So we don't actually need that link to go back home now, which is nice, because we've got the header navigation. You can probably drop all of that then. So why is it not working here? Let's see. I wonder if it even deleted the customer. So let's try going back to our customer page. Okay, so we still have Ian the cat. That's interesting. Ian the cat. Let's see. Let me clear this out here. There's a, is this the clear? It's called delete. Make sure we sent all the right information here. So we have, our payload was delete customer with ID of 3. Oh, this is, action is delete customer. And we don't know what to do if we don't know what the actions are. Hi, Ian. Yes, hi, hi, hi. So maybe our else needs something else in here, like an unknown action. Because it just, the page is completely blank. It's kind of a bummer. So that's interesting. So our action here was incorrect. This is delete customer. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So these errors are totally on purpose to illustrate how you can go and see what's wrong with your own stuff. Ian, you're not allowed to talk. Marv banned the word. So it's not allowed anymore. Bad news for you. I know. You just want to play? You just want to sit in my lap? I'm busy right now, baby. Okay, so I think customers then is done. Right? We were able to add customers, we were able to update customers, we were able to delete customers. We were able to list our existing customers. How's that feel? All right, Marv, you might be cooperating. I'm not allowed to say that word. Okay, Crow. I will try and see how all of the audience is doing. All right, those are like for 5 minutes, right? So give me a 5-minute timer, and in 5 minutes I can say the words again. Is that okay? I'll try it. Yeah, yeah. The ban is silly, so just a fun thing to try. If any folks out there are bored. All right, so every time I'm caught using one of those words, someone can ask for bonus points. If someone types in ! bonus points, they can see Nightbot giving them points. Really need to add a cooldown on that so I don't have so many of them running at the same time. All right, I'm going to let him out of my office real quick. Give me 1 second. All right, Ian's gone. Oh, I should have that, Crow. I need to get better at some of this Nightbot stuff. I know there's lots of ways to do it. I should put that as a to-do for making Nightbot cooler. You can do that. If you just say ! Bonus points, it'll award bonus points to the person who enters it. There's got to be a way to do that. We can do that another time. Okay, so we got customer done. How's that feeling? Should we move on to the next one? Oh, I misspelled it up here too. Customers. I don't know why. I misspelled it a bunch of times. Wow. That's sad. All right, should we do transaction next? We do transaction? So let's add a new model for the transaction model. And then we'll pretty much copy paste. We'll take item maybe. I don't know what fields does transaction have? It has a customer ID, a date and time, and an ID. Okay, that's fine. We'll take the customer model then and copy that one. So if we want to get transactions, here we're going to select star from transaction, and then we'll say that my dollar transactions and return transactions. Okay, so gets are pretty easy. Again, without any filtering. The filtering is more fun, but we don't need any of that right now. And add transaction. Now we could say this needed a customer ID, right? And it needed possibly a date and time, or we can just use the now. And I think using now is probably easier for us than having to fill it in. So I think we looked at that. Either way is okay, but now is like the current database time. It's probably faster. So we'll say insert into transaction, and we're going to say I need the customer ID and the, what do we call it, date time? Is that what it was? Date underscore time. Values, and we'll just bump that down, was going to be customer ID. Customer ID. Look at that, I think I spelled it right. And then we're just going to say now in parentheses. And I think that's what was the current date and time. I think that's how we did that one, right? So we ran some SQL. Let's give it a shot. And say, look at that, insert. Insert a transaction. We're going to take ID out because we don't need it here. Value, now customer ID should be an integer value, so it doesn't need the quotes. We'll say just 1, and then we're going to say now with parentheses, and that should give me the current time. So let's add a new transaction for customer ID 1, date and time of now. Let's say go. Oh goodness. Customer ID, date, time. Oh wait, oh shoot, I gave it 3 things. Yep, we didn't need that blank there. So if we're not passing the ID, we just don't pass the ID because it will auto-generate, auto-update. Or you could pass it null if you wanted to include it in your field list. I said the word, uh-oh. Yeah, so now I think worked. But nobody caught it, so nobody gets bonus points. Yep, and we get the current date and time. So that ought to work nicely for us. So insert into transaction, customer ID, date and time, values, customer ID, now. And we'll go update that binding. Again, it never hurts to have extra spaces here, right? In case you're not sure. Anytime you're doing that concatenation, spaces are nice, just to make sure we don't run into each other. So we'll bind customer ID to $customer ID. And then we need to, yep, we're past customer ID, so that should be good. And then we need a delete transaction. Delete from transaction, where ID is ID, great, easy. And update transaction. Given an ID, customer ID, and I guess we could give it a date and time, right? If we're updating it, we could do that, that's no problem. So we're gonna update transaction. We're gonna set the customer ID to the customer ID, comma, right? We're going to do another thing here. We're going to set my, oops, sorry, that should not be the $sign. Set the date and time equal colon date and time, where customer ID, where the ID equals the ID. So on updates, we need to know what the ID is. On adds, we don't give it one. Because the update, we're going to say, hey, this is the ID that I want to update. please go set these fields here, set customer and date and time, where here, this is the ID. So we can bind ID, we can bind customer ID, $customer ID, and then we can bind date and time to date and time. Now that one gets a little bit funny, but it should be okay as long as we're like copying the format. Because sometimes it's hard to get out the correct date and time format. Date and time. Okay. So that should be it for our functions here. Oh, update transaction. Yep, that's good. Not you, Cortana. Go away. Delete transaction. Add transaction. Sorry, insert in transaction. Delete transaction. Update transaction. So I think that's it for our controller. We'll go, I'm sorry, for the model, we'll go add a controller now. So we're going to go add just to the main section here, a new PHP file. And this will be our transaction.php, our transaction page. And we can pretty much copy off of customer here again. We'll grab all of this, go over to transaction. And great, now we have to do a bunch of renames here. So we need the transaction model. We need a list transactions. And if we're listing transactions, we need the transaction list. So I can pretty much like do a search for customer, and everywhere customer comes up, I'm going to be updating it here, right? So the transactions is get transactions. And then add transaction. Now we don't need name to add a transaction. We need the customer ID, right, is all we needed. So this is the customer ID, and then we want to filter validate on an int. Validate using an int. Great. And this would be $ID. And then if ID equals 0, oh no, customer ID, sorry, customer ID. Customer ID. And if the customer ID is 0, Mr. Invalid customer ID. Otherwise, we're going to add transaction given the customer ID. And then we're going to header them to transaction.php, right? Make sure that does the correct one for our headers. And then if we're going to update transaction, right, we need the ID, we need the customer ID, so we go copy that one here. And we also need a date and time. Oops. Too many of those. So we'll have a date and time is probably a special characters input here, right? Because we'll make sure it's not invalid. Oh, we probably don't need that for numeric values though, right? I don't think we need to do any int here. Is it just a numeric value? I think the numeric filtering here will take care of that. But this is going to be now date and time. Okay, and then if ID is 0 or customer ID is 0 or my date and time is null, invalid ID, customer ID, or date and time. Sure, something like that. And then we'll try update transaction, given the ID, the customer ID, and the date and time. And then we want to header them back to the transaction page. So a lot of copy pasting, like it's a little bit tedious actually, but you know, hopefully having done it once or twice here, you're going to appreciate when frameworks do this sort of thing for us. But it's not too bad. Not too bad. Delete transaction. ID is perfectly fine. Again, I don't think we need the special characters there. I don't remember if we added that for a reason or if that was probably just from a copy paste. This is now delete transaction, giving the ID, and header back to the transaction page. Okay, so now I'm going to search for customer, and we should only have it a couple places, right? Looks like we have it for customer ID in adding a transaction. That's correct. We have it in update transaction for updating a customer ID. That's correct. And that's it. So it looks like we got rid of all the other references to customer here. We should be pretty good then. So then our transaction list is a new view. Let's add a new PHP file. This is transaction list. We'll take our customer list and we'll copy paste it. This will be transactions. here. We had a name, we had a customer ID, and then we had a date and time. So new table header for date and time. New table header there, great. And then we have our $transactions as $transaction, individual transaction, transaction ID, transaction customer ID, and customer ID, oh goodness, customer ID, and then also the date and time. Date and time, get those values out, put them in here, and then our pages now we're going to send to transaction.php. This is a customer ID to add, the customer ID. We want to add transaction, and this is add transaction. Right, and then sending again to transaction.php. This is the ID to update. This is the customer ID to update, and then we want like a date and time to update. Date and time, oops. Date time to update will be the date time. We'll send all those to update transaction as our action here. We'll call this update transaction. Transaction, okay? And then again, the transaction PHP page. PHP page is redundant. I'm sorry. PHP is already ends with the word page here. So I'm sorry. So delete transaction. That's like if you take the networking class and you learn what a NIC is, a network interface card, and then you hear people say NIC card. They're saying network interface card. And it just drives me bonkers sometimes, but that's okay. Delete transaction. Okay, so delete transaction. So let's again search for customer. We should have the customer ID in the list here. We have it in the add. We have it in the update. And we have it in the, no, not customer. This is transaction to delete. So that one was wrong. Transaction to delete. And now what do we want for our view here? Well, what should we have? That should be our transaction ID select. Transaction ID select. So let's add a new select. New transaction ID select. We'll go take a look at our customer ID select. Go to our transaction ID select. Now this one's a little bit trickier here because we want the $transactions, right? Transactions here as a singular transaction. We want the transaction ID, but we want two things to show here. We want the, well, really that's customer ID. That's kind of unfortunate because it'd be nicer to have the customer name here, but we don't have that. So all we get is the customer ID, right, out of that transaction. But then we also want to include, right, along with, how about like a append in here, like a space, and then append in here, the transaction date and time. Right, can we include those in and have both then? So it's like this is the customer ID. So maybe we even want to say that then, right? So this is customer ID, and then the customer ID, and then the date and time, and the date and time. So we're kind of like a wide drop down here, but we want to have all that information for them when we go to update one of these. Okay. And so we got our lists here, we got our page here, we got the views, we got the model, we got the controller. Now the top nav then, our header needs to include then a link for transactions. So let's do another non-breaking space. Here, this will be transaction.php, and this will be transactions.php. Let's give it a shot. So we should have items, customers, transactions. Now I see 3 transactions, right? We see the customer, we see the date and time. Oh, why is that not bolded? Wasn't that a table header in our transaction list? Did I do it wrong? I did table data there, but table header closed. So thankfully I was happy with it. That was wrong. There, now it bolds it nicely and centers. The table headers get some nice little formatting. Now I can see, okay, transaction ID 1, 2, 3, customer 1, 2, 1, date and time, customer ID to add. Let's add one for customer 2. Add a transaction. Uh-oh. Filter validate underscore line 26 in transaction controller. I think I did a bad copy paste. Transaction controller, go to line 26. Control G for go to, if you ever want to just jump to a particular line. Int here, filter validate int. Okay. Let's go back. refresh our page, customer ID to add to. Now we get a new transaction at this date and time. Awesome, 6:57 or 6:59. Very good. All right, so how about an ID to update? Let's update transaction 5. Let's set that back to me, and let's say, so I'm going to copy paste this date and time here, and let's say this was maybe 57. So let's see if we can back it up here. Uh-oh, missing or invalid ID, customer ID, date and time. Bummer, something happened here with our validates. So let's take a look. Let's make sure we did it right first. So update transaction, we have an ID as an ID, we have a customer ID as a customer ID, we have a date and time as a date and time. Okay, let's make sure the form looks good here. So let's go back here, put on our dev tools. And we'll update transaction, a typo in transactions, okay. So what are we sending here? So we're sending an ID, we're sending a name, oh, name here. We have date and time, we're missing name was bad, so our customer ID was wrong on the form. So that's our transaction list. The form here, where we're sending to update transaction, here was customer ID. Customer, I can't spell customer at all. Okay, and then date and time, date time for update transaction. Go back, refresh, okay, let's try updating 5, put it as me, and then let's say, can we be maybe like 57 here? We'll try updating. Oh, it updated. Awesome. So date and times get a little bit picky here. Some weird stuff is going to happen. So it might be nicer, like maybe we do leave that null, because like if you do this wrong here, I don't know, if I just put in like 2/17/22 at 7 p.m. or something, and I try and update that, it's probably going to be pretty upset here. Yeah, I get nothing. Well, that's not very useful here. Uh-oh. Date time, undefined constant. Oh, so I had an error here in my select. I didn't even notice that. So somewhere in our select here then, we have, what's that, our transaction ID select. Transaction, oh, that needs to be in quotes here. That date time needs to be in quotes. Oh, dearie me. Okay. That one. Okay, now get those lists here. So let's go back and update this one again here. Let's say update transaction 5. It's for me. We'll put it back to, oops, there's a big tab there. How about 57 again or so? Update that transaction. And now it's better. So weirdly, it doesn't throw up on an unfamiliar date. It just gives you zeros, which is not great. We probably need some sort of better handling around that. But again, not too concerned right now. And now we see our transactions. Right, with the nice little formatted stuff here. Again, it's not the prettiest thing. It'd be nicer to have like what customer it was, but we don't have that information right now. If we wanted to, we could go look it up. And that would be kind of fun. We could look up, given a customer ID, go find the given customer name and put that in some of these fields here maybe. That'd be pretty cool, but we don't have that right now. Right? We haven't got that far. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there tonight. Okay, so should we do the line items then? We're going to take a break now. It's been about an hour. What do you folks want to do? I can do either. Totally up to you. I got my coffee here, so I'm good to go for quite a while. Mir, you voted nothing. That's okay. No one seems to have an opinion. Let's just finish it then. We'll just finish it. Okay, finish it and start a new topic after break. Go, you got it. You were the first good vote, so you got it. So let's add a new controller. Now this will be for our line item. Line item here. So line item controller, let's just steal from here. All right, so then this will be the line item model. Item model. We're going to list line items, and let's list line items. This is a line item list, Now to add line item, Now, line item needs a bunch of things, right? Line item needs a transaction ID, and it needs an item ID. Item ID, oh yeah, we don't need the special characters thing. That's a bad copy paste. That'll be a item ID. It's going to have a quantity, right? There's a quantity. As we're going to find quantity. Okay, give that a little format. Now, what else do we have in line item? This one's going to be a little, isn't it? Line item. Oh, my neck. To like slouch better or something. I don't know. Whew. So it has an, oh, the item SKU. That's right, not item ID. A transaction ID, a quantity, and then the total cost we can generate. This one will take a little bit of work, but we can do it. So we don't need to be past total cost initially. Okay. So we even have, oh, we have an add line item, don't we? We have this add line item right here. Perfect, 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 perfect. I'm going to do all of this for add, right? This is going to get the SKU, the transaction ID, and the quantity. Get SKU. Get the values if you have enough. Insert into line item. Oh goodness. Okay, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff happening here. This is going to be fun. So let's do. We're in the controller still, though, right? Our line item controller. So we need the transaction ID. We need the item SKU. Right, will be item SKU, and then we need the quantity. And if any of those are 0, right, then the whole thing's invalid. Or the quantity is 0, the whole thing is invalid. Invalid transaction ID, item SKU, or quantity. Okay, otherwise then we will add line item. Given those values, the transaction ID, the item SKU, and the quantity. And then we'll header back to lineItem.php. I think we did the models first before. Let's go back and do the model here. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, but it's nice to have all those methods like ready to go here. This is line item model. Okay, so we'll take let me take the transaction model. Why not? We'll go copy paste in here. So just get line items, select star from line item. Line items, plural, right, equals statement fetch all, return line items. Okay, now add line item is trickier here. Add line item. Line item. Now we needed to do all of this stuff we were doing over here, right? So we're gonna we don't need to pass these though. We don't need to go get them, but we're going to go do all these things here. We'll go to our line item model. And so to add here, we're going to do all of these things. And then statement, close cursor. Close cursor. Good practice, right? To always close our cursor when we're done. And I think we had one extra curly brace here. Okay. So we don't need to be passed to these things. We're going to be given these. So we had a transaction ID, we had an item SKU, and then we had a quantity. Right, that were given to us. We don't need these here. We'll go get the database out, and now we're going to get the item SKU here. That's fine. We can call it item SKU. That's fine. So we'll go get the list from items here. We'll go get just the one row. We'll get the name, the price, and the quantity. We'll get the new quantity, and we'll make sure there's enough of them here. We'll get the total cost. We'll insert into line item the transaction ID, the item SKU, the quantity, and the total cost, the things we just generated here. This was item SKU, right? Item SKU. The quantity and total cost. What's upset about statement? Oh, because we had a statement up here. That's probably okay. I'm not too concerned. And then we'll update item. We'll set the quantity where we get that item SKU. Right, assuming this was all good. Close the cursor. So for add line item, then we're going to do all of those things, right? Which is pretty cool. If that was the case, right? If we had enough. Now this echo here is a little bit ugly, right? Because this is inside of a function here, add line item, that we don't really know, what is going to happen with this here. So we might want to do something here. Instead of echoing this, maybe we return it. Hey, thanks for following along. And if we return then, right from a function, we can just have the rest of this not be tabbed in, which is a little bit prettier. Oops, what do we do here? No? Oh, goodness. What happened to, what is that one? Okay, if it's greater than 0. Oh. No, sorry, okay, I'm supposed to end that. Okay, that was weird. I thought I did that. All right, so we'll get that ended here. We'll just return a value. So we can go check for this here in a little while. We can use that as an error later when we call this function. And then we'll go do this stuff. We'll go update, we'll update, we'll update, we'll execute, we'll close. So over in our line item controller then, when we try and add a line item here, we need to get the value back out. Right, so we need to look for an error is equal to whatever we get back from this method function here. And then if there's an error, error does not equal like just a nothing here. Let's go again, do this same sort of thing here. We just say here's the message is going to be the error. We'll include that. Otherwise, right, we'll header them back to the page. So check and see, hey, if there is some sort of, maybe a message here. We'll just call that message. Why not? We can just do that all in one line. Oops. And then if there's a message, we can give them the error. Otherwise, we'll send it here because we want to be able to give that message back from the controller here. Sorry, I'm slouched way too far, but it feels better in my neck. All right, so we should be able to add then for a transaction, or add a line item, right? Now this is update line item. Now this one here, we're going to just kind of cheat. So in our line item model, to update, have it delete line item. There we go. Delete line item. Delete from line item. Sure, no problem here. Find the ID, but now update line item is a little bit trickier. We're not going to bother updating any of those other things. So you give me the ID, you give me the transaction ID, you give me the SKU, or the item SKU. You have to give me the quantity, and you have to give me the total cost. Right? If you give me all of those values, then we can update line item, and we can set them all. Where ID is ID, we're going to set customer ID. Oh, this was a transaction ID to transaction ID. We're going to set item SKU to item SKU. We're going to set the quantity to quantity, quantity. And then we're going to set total cost to total cost, where the ID matches. And we have to go bind all these values here. So we're going to bind transaction ID to $transaction ID. We're going to bind the item SKU to the item SKU. Item SKU. We're going to bind the, ID can stay, right? And then we need quantity and total cost. So quantity to quantity, and then total cost to total cost. This is quantity, and this is total cost. All right, so we should be able to go update those here, given all those values. So add was the hard one here. And again, we're sort of cheating on the updates. Not too big of a deal there. So then in our controller, then if we're going to update, we needed a, let's see, we did add, right? We had transaction ID, we had items, SKU, we had quantity, great. For update, then we needed all those things again, transaction ID, item ID, SKU, let's grab, and the item as well. And we also had a total cost. is going to be total cost. Now that's going to be a validate, filter validate, a floating point number, right? Because you can have pennies in here. So if ID is not 0, if transaction ID is 0, or if item SKU, this is where I think we're dealing with those as integers, right? Instead of strings, a 0, or the quantity was 0, or the total cost is 0. I don't know what you mean by not added. Sorry, don't know exactly what that means. Maybe you don't either. That's okay. I appreciate it though. Transaction ID, item SKU, quantity, or total cost. Exclamation point Discord, if you want to join the Discord. Total cost. Yeah, you can get the link right here if you want it. Discord, go for it. Right. Otherwise, then we can update line item. Line item given the ID, given the transaction ID, given the item SKU, given the quantity, and given the total cost. And then we'll send you back to the line item page here, or if there's an error, we'll get the error. Whew, my goodness, that's a bunch of stuff here. All right, and then delete line item. This one's not so bad though. Line item gets the ID out. If the ID is 0, no good. Otherwise, we send them. We want to delete line item. Delete line item. Right, and we'll send you back to the line item page. Okay, so I think the controller's done here then. Right, so we have add, we have update, we have delete, and we have list. Okay, so now we need the view, right? We needed this line item list here. So let's add a new view. Let's do line item view. View. Oh, that's a good way to get yourself banned here, friend. You do not want to buy followers or primes or viewers on some blocked website. Goodbye, sir. That's so cool. If I ban someone, like it removes them from the chat view in this overlay. I didn't appreciate that much before. All right, so let's grab another one of these lists. We'll go to line item view. I'm sorry, line item list. Shoot, line item list. Right, and we'll paste it in. It is line items. Okay, again, we're not searching by name here, so we don't need any of that. Now we had an ID. We had a transaction ID. We had an item SKU. We had a quantity.
Jackson upstairs.
All right, give me a couple minutes, sweetie. Thanks.
No, he's on the stairs right now.
Okay, thanks. And then we need a total price.
There may be in a couple of minutes.
Or total cost or something. I forget what we call it. Cost, price, one of the two. I'm a tyrant, yeah. All right, so from transactions, individual transaction, then we'll go and list out all these things. We'll list out the ID, we'll list out the transaction ID. Oh, I'm sorry, this is line items. Shoot, line items here. Individual line item. Then, and then for each line item, the ID, the transaction ID, the quantity, the total cost. What is it? Total cost? Total price? Should see what we called it here. We called it total cost. Good. Total cost. Quantity, transaction ID. Is that it? Oh, the item SKU as well, right? So we'll add an item SKU in here. Item SKU. Okay. Oh, that might be a snow day for my daughter. Let me take this real quick. I'm sorry. I have to check this alert.
Good evening. This is Dan Durkin from the Walled Lake Schools Community Relations Department calling to inform you that all of the Walled Lake schools will be closed on Friday, February 18th due to the anticipated poor road conditions tomorrow morning in several.
Hooray! Snow day tomorrow. All right. 70 degrees in New York City. Wow. Yeah, we're getting the weather front for sure. So, all right, and then actions here. Go to line item here. Oh, we were doing this that form. That's right. So for line item, we wanted to have this is going to be for adding, oh, that's right, we copied the wrong one here. That's all right, let's go copy a different one here. Let's do a transaction list maybe, because this has the better forms. Want add, update, and delete. So our line item list, we'll go update this one. Yeah, we'll just go update all these forms because I want all the separate ones here. I don't want the individuals. All right. All right, so we have, this is going to be line item, PHP. This is the line item to add. Line item to add. Oh, so this is really the, I'm sorry, this is a transaction ID to add, given a transaction ID. And this is going to be for add line item. Line item, and then we also needed then a item SKU and a quantity. This is the item SKU and the quantity. This is an item SKU and this is a quantity. And now the lovely part of this is, you know, if any of these don't match, we're going to get hit later with it, but that's okay. We can add a line item. Okay, and then to update line item, we need all these same things here. So I'm going to take all of these same ones. We also need the ID, and then we also need the total cost. Right, so one more then. This is total cost. To update, right? Update all of these. Update, 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 update. ID to update, transaction ID to update, item SKU to update, quantity to update, 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 update line item. Line item and update line item. Okay, and then delete. So this is again to the line item page. Oh, do we do that for the other one? Let's make sure we did for, yep, transaction page is line item page. This is the line item. To delete, we can have a line item ID select, given a delete line item. Sure, and then delete line item. Okay, so we need to add a line item ID select. So let's add a new view. Let's go copy a different view. Let's do the, I think the transaction ID select had the multiple values in here. Yeah, so this is what we want here. We'll copy this one for our line item ID select. Now this is line items as individual line item here, and then individual line item ID as the selected value. And then we have transaction ID as the line item transaction ID. And then we have a quantity as the line item quantity. And you know what? These can all come down here. This doesn't need to be so long here. This is kind of insane here. And then we're going to also have then the total cost. That's the total cost. Right, and that's the end of our select option here. Okay, let's see if that one works for us here. I'm going to cross my fingers. And then in our navigation then, in our header page, we can add another section for line items. This is line item. This is line items. Okay, and let's give that a run. Cross our fingers. Whew. All right, line items. Oh goodness, get transaction. Line item, page 18. Line item, controller, line 18. Oops, this is get line items. Okay, maybe that was an easy one. Let's see, refresh. All right, no variable line items in line item list 14. Okay, so what do we do wrong here in the controller? So our line item controller should have, oh, it's dollar line items, duh, line items. Not transactions, okay? That was another quick one, hopefully. All right, no field total cost. What is the field named? Isn't it total cost? Total underscore cost? Here? Okay, where's the error? Where's the error? Total, oh, I have a space there. So that's line item list 20. Line item list, line 20, go to 20. Here, total underscore cost, okay? Refresh that one. Sorry, we're like rushing through all this. I'm trying to get through it. Our select looks like we got 2 options here. That's good. Let's add a new one. So let's add transaction number, sure, number 1. Let's add a SKU for 1. Let's add a quantity of 1, because I don't even know what any of these things are. Missing or invalid transaction ID, item, SKU, or quantity. Oh, bummer. Okay, so something's wrong here. Let's check our dev tools. Let's see what we're adding here. Let's go add it here. So we're saying item. Our payload is transaction ID, item, SKU, quantity. Looks okay so far. Transaction ID, item, SKU, and quantity. So in our controller then, transaction controller, when we try and add an item, oh, that's add transaction. That should be add line item. Did we mess that one up too? That should be add line item. No, I'm in the wrong page. Goodness. The line, I'm trying to go too fast. I'm sorry. So add line item. We have a transaction ID. It's customer ID. That's why. This should be transaction ID. Item, SKU, and quantity. Okay, those should be fine then. Let's go back here. Let's try it again. And it added. Okay, good. So whatever we're selling there, item, does it cost 1? Yeah, coffee costs 1. Okay, so that worked out then. And then we should have 1 less after we add that line item, right? We had 20. Let's go add another line item. 1, 1, 1. We should now have 20 minus 1 and 19. Cool. So that's working so far. Let's try once. 1. Let's do item SKU 1. Let's do 12 here. Is it $12? $12. Okay. And now we have how many left? We have 7 left. Try one more time. So 1, 1, and 12. There's not enough in stock to purchase 12. Look at that. So our error is even working here. That's a good sign. And we still have 7, right? So that's a good sign. Let's go update. Let's do update transaction 7. Update it to transaction ID 3. Item SKU 4. Let's make it 12 again. And total cost 12 because who knows what. Uh-oh. Okay, so a problem here in our controller again. Let's see if maybe we're not passing the right things or we're validating wrong. Yeah, not customer ID. This was transaction ID. Transaction ID, item SKU, quantity. Oh, quantity again. That was wrong. Total cost. That would have been bad. Okay, so let's try it one more time. Let's go give an update. Update the line item. Okay, not great. So let's see. What are we sending? Do we have everything in the payload? We have transaction ID. We have item SKU. We have quantity. Oh, we have quantity again. So we did that wrong in our form here in our line item, the list, line item list here. Let's see. In our update then, we missed something. So our update here. Nope, line item list. There we go. Line item list. Our update section, quantity, total cost. Total cost. Okay, let's go back. Try it again. Oh, we have to refresh the page. Refresh it. Let's do 7, 3, 4, 12, and 12. Let's do 13 and 13 to see if they change here. Update. Okay. Oops. Now we're getting an error here. Total cost equal 13 where ID equals 7 at line 1. Okay. So something with our SQL here in the model then. That's our line item model. We're trying to update no, line item model. Yeah. Where's our update? Update line item, set transaction ID equal transaction ID, comma. Spaces are never bad. Total cost equal total cost. Oh, comma here. I missed a comma. Missed a comma. That's all. I think that's all it is was a comma. Let's try it. Go back. And again. Oh, no column found transaction ID. Okay, okay. On the field list. Where's transaction ID? Transaction ID. Transaction ID. Oh goodness, so let me refactor rename this. Refactor, rename. That's a transaction. Should change a couple places. Great, I found it. Great, 2 places. Good. Transaction ID. Okay. Go back, try it one more time. Update. All right, it updated. Great, now can we delete some? Let's go delete that one. It deleted. All right, awesome. So I think we are good, folks. Wow, okay, so an hour and a half or so on that one. Definitely a bit of work here. Again, why we didn't really bother with the lab for that one. That was kind of doing that exercise as well. Taking this one on, so. All right, so we're due for a break. Why don't we take 10? I'll commit this to GitHub, and we'll come back in a little while, and we'll move on to the new stuff, okay? We'll do break time till, that puts us at, what, 7:40 or so? We get the music going, hit play. Hey folks, see you in a minute. Huh. I having some OBS trouble. Give me a second. It's not switching scenes. What is going on here? Is that the scene we're in? Huh. Can you see me, folks? What is going on? It didn't switch. I think I'm still connected. Let's see. We'll try that again. Let's go back to starting soon. Back to scene. Nothing. Wow. That doesn't work. All right, give me a second. I'm going to stop OBS and restart it. I'm sorry. Oh, you can see me? Okay. It's not showing me any of that in my view in OBS, but okay, if you can see me. Can you see my screen? The camera froze. Okay, yeah, let me stop and start OBS real quick. It should keep the stream going because it should be a quick restart, but if you get disconnected, I'll be back on in like just 1 minute, okay?